Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
They did not put the seatbelts on her. She fell onto her right side. She broke 2 ribs.
A Canadian woman living with terminal cancer says she was left severely injured on an Air Canada flight when staff didn't secure her to her wheelchair. Plus,
I was going to change my plans.
Especially with the VPD so close by, you would think that we could do something to prevent all of this from happening in Olympic Village.
some people near Vancouver's Olympic Village are shaken up after police say a passerby was stabbed by a shoplifting suspect. And long line rescue. A snowboarder is airlifted out after falling on Vancouver Island.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A woman living with terminal cancer says she was left severely injured on an Air Canada flight after airline staff did not secure her to a wheelchair. It's the latest in a series of CBC News stories about accessibility challenges on the carrier. As Michelle Gassoub reports, the couple says they don't want anyone else to experience what they've gone through.
This trip could possibly be the last trip we go on. And I just wanted to be, perfect.
Vito Rizzuto's wife Sheila is living with glioblastoma, an aggressive form of brain cancer. A surgery earlier this year means she now uses a wheelchair, and doctors have told her she may have a month or two left. To make the most of their time, the couple booked a trip to Miami. But when their Air Canada flight was disembarking, they say staff failed to properly secure Sheila to a wheelchair.
They did not put the armrests down. They did not put the seatbelts on her. She fell onto her right side. She broke 2 ribs.
Sheila was left on the ground, bleeding, with injuries to her legs and ribs, in severe pain that continued throughout the trip.
Whether we hung around the pool, but she was in so much pain that she wasn't enjoying herself. She was depressed. She was crying a lot. She was just down.
In response, the airline offered the couple $500 in flight credits. In a statement, Air Canada said, "This matter is concerning and is now being reviewed by our claims department. Our preliminary review of the event indicates the customer's spouse did not want our agent to touch his wife in the manner required to secure the belt." Rizzuto says he was shocked by the statement, saying he never asked staff not to help Sheila.
This did not have to happen to her. And put her through more pain than she's already in because of the state of the cancer.
Their experience just the latest to become public after a series of CBC News stories. Last year, Air Canada was summoned to Ottawa to answer questions about accessibility. The airline's CEO promised it would make a number of changes. That promise, not enough to prevent what they say happened in Miami.
I'm not looking for anything from Air Canada other than rectifying their procedures, making things better, training their staff better.
Even with the setback, the Rizzutos are hopeful they'll get one more trip together for the holidays. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meanwhile, a couple from Victoria is going public after WestJet tried to silence their efforts to seek compensation. Experts say that is a growing and troublesome trend. Erica Johnson has their story.
We should do another of these cruises.
Russell and Anna Gurney pore over a photo book, a memento from a San Diego cruise they almost missed. WestJet canceled their flight, rebooked them on another flight leaving 2 days later.
Accepting that itinerary meant we would have missed the cruise ship.
The couple found tickets on an Air Canada flight that would get them to San Diego on time, but they were $1,500 more. So they filed a claim with WestJet for compensation. When the airline refused, the Gurneys took their case to small claims court. Soon they were dealing with a lawyer for WestJet, posted correspondence on a Facebook group for air passengers. When the law firm discovered the post, a lawyer asked Gurney to take it down and said WestJet's withdrawing its settlement offer for sharing what it called confidential settlement discussions.
You're an average person going up against a legal firm that represents a huge airline.
The founder of that air passenger website says he's troubled by a growing trend. Airlines trying to silence passengers seeking compensation.
They're trying to intimidate passengers. They want to make you feel that they are doing you a favor by paying what is owed to you anyway.
Even disputes handled by the regulator are shrouded in secrecy. When WestJet damaged Tim Rogers' bag and refused to pay replacement costs, he took the case to the regulator, won, and posted the CTA's decision to that Facebook group. Then he got a call from the regulator telling him that decision can't be made public.
It sounds like they're trying to make it easier for the airlines.
Full CTA decisions used to be posted online, but legislative changes last year made most details confidential.
I think it violates the Charter, I think it's probably unconstitutional, and that's the real source of the problem here.
A spokesperson for Transport Canada said the new rules make settling disputes more efficient. As for WestJet, it told Go Public it was following the rules, and in the end it did settle with the Gurneys, but to get their money, made them sign a non-disclosure agreement. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
A United Nations report says 140 women or girls were killed by an intimate partner or family member every day last year. The report was released on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And it's prompted some Canadian politicians to renew calls to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. More now from Katie Nicholson.
We'll ask members to please rise.
A House united in silence to recognize violence against women, but very much divided on declaring it an epidemic.
It is an epidemic. Will the Premier do the right thing once and for all? No more studies, no more committees. Declare it an epidemic and do the right thing today.
The opposition NDP seizing upon this International Day of Action to renew pressure on the Ford government to push a stalled bill forward, which would declare an intimate partner violence epidemic. Ford didn't directly answer criticisms about the declaration delay.
I have 4 daughters, and anyone ever touch my daughters, it'd be the worst day of their lives.
The opposition says that's just more spin.
This is larger than Doug Ford's family. This is about the thousands of women and children across Ontario who don't have a member of provincial parliament or a premier as a dad, who need support.
In Ottawa, more appeals to politicians to take action on gun and coercive control legislation from survivors and their family members like Brian Sweeney.
My daughter was a beautiful soul.
Whose daughter Angie was murdered by her ex last year.
The new laws need to be enforced now. They will help stop women and children from being murdered by domestic and intimate partner gun violence in their homes where they should be safe.
It's not just Canada. Women took to the streets across the world today to vent their anger.
The United Nations aimed to eliminate violence against women by 2030, but in the last year, reports suggest that the number of women and girls killed by partners and family members increased by more than 6% globally. Numbers that suggest this is a growing problem. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, a vigil on the steps of the BC legislature marked the deaths of more than a dozen women in this province from intimate partner violence, and it urged the government to take action.
Good intentions and empty words are not going to cut it. We need real action.
16 women have been killed by their partners in BC so far this year. The Vancouver Rape and Women's Shelter say women experiencing violence need more support, including boosted housing and economic supports. It also wants lawmakers to do more to prevent men charged with violence against women from repeating that, suggesting those accused ought to be monitored or kept in jail until trial. Some people in and around Vancouver's Olympic Village say they feel nervous after police say a passerby was stabbed by a shoplifting suspect over the weekend. 4 people were arrested and the victim is recovering. As John Hernandez reports, some residents say it's time officers boosted patrols.
It's definitely scary, like this is where we live.
Some people in Olympic Village feel quite shaken after a violent attack that happened over the weekend.
It was one of those things where I knew I was coming here today and I almost hesitated. I was going to change my plans.
The attack happened on Saturday night at this liquor store. Police say a group of shoplifters went in and tried to steal alcohol. The store's security guard intervened, Then another person believed to work in the neighborhood also stepped in.
We believe that one of the shoplifters produced a knife and used that knife to stab that third-party witness who was attempting to intervene. The injuries were quite serious. Significant amount of blood that was coming out of his wrist.
The suspects fled while officers began treating the victim's serious injuries.
When our officers arrived on scene, they located the victim, who was quite seriously injured and bleeding quite heavily. Our officers were able to apply 2 tourniquets to his arm to slow the bleeding. Ambulance paramedics were able to come and took the man to hospital.
Police say the 63-year-old man is recovering but may need more surgery. Officers were able to track down the alleged shoplifters that night on Granville Street. Managers at the liquor store declined an interview, but in a statement posted to social media, pledged to support staff who were affected and ensure continued security at the store. The attack has fueled concerns from some residents who fear violent incidents like this happen far too often.
This needs to be patrolled better. I would say all season, all year long. People have to be here to more security.
And I've never felt unsafe, but that's changed in the last maybe 4 years.
The VPD says violent crime in the city has dropped overall, but there has been an increase in shoplifters targeting businesses using weapons. Police say they're working with business owners to try to make this community safer. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canadian border agents say they have seized more than 200 bricks of cocaine being smuggled into the province in 3 separate incidents. The CBSA says the 210 bricks would fetch roughly $6.6 million on the street. 2 seizures happened at the Pacific Highway crossing. The other was at the Aldergrove border crossing. All 3 involved commercial trucks. The agency says 3 drivers were also arrested. As winter rolls into parts of Metro Vancouver, TransLink is outlining its plans to help ensure commuters don't get stuck in the cold.
Now, all indications, of course, are that this winter may be a bit more severe than the past. And if we've learned anything from last week's bomb cyclone, it's that we should prepare for the unexpected.
McDaniel says the Transit Authority will use more tires with a deeper tread, which they tried last year, and roll out 60 new center drive axle articulated buses to replace the standard rear drive extended buses that normally get sidelined in the snow.
The buses really are only as good as the roads that they drive on, and they still can get stuck in unplowed roads and very icy conditions.
Handy Dart will also be staffed with 2 operators in snowy and icy weather, and medical appointments will be given top priority. Darius Madavi joins us for a look at the weather in a rather cooling pattern.
Yes, that's right. Especially up in the north, very frigid, but also relatively calm. You can see we've had a few showers, especially in Metro Vancouver, the Greater Victoria area over the last few hours. If we take a look at our forecast, lots of sunshine at times tomorrow here in Metro Vancouver and across much of the island as well. But then we see that cloud build in towards the end of the day, and that cloud will, for the most part, stick around through Wednesday and Thursday, maybe clearing up at times, and then we'll have some precipitation for the most part coming in on Friday, although some showers may pop up at times before that as well. If we zoom out here and look at the, here we go. If we zoom out here and look at the rest of the province, there we go. Some fairly calm conditions tonight, a little bit of cloud in many places, some snow in the Okanagan, but overall, Dan, it's the chilly weather that's going to get you this week.
Okay, thanks very much for the warning.
Thank you.
The Vancouver Whitecaps have parted ways with their head coach, Vanni Sartini. Sartini took over coaching duties on an interim basis in August 2021 and was officially named head coach that November. He posted a record of 57 wins, 51 losses, and 31 ties. The Whitecaps CEO thanked Sartini for his commitment to the club, but says it's time for new leadership.
We have to hold ourselves accountable, and we have to kick everyone in the ass in our organization to be hungry and come with the right mindset, the right fresh energy into next season, and to start to compete from the first day.
Sartini helped the team qualify for the MLS Cup playoffs 3 times and won 3 consecutive TELUS Canadian Championships. In a statement, the former coach says Vancouver will always have a special place in his heart. A daring backcountry rescue. Search crews scour Strathcona Provincial Park for an injured snowboarder. That story from Vancouver Island when we come back. In Abbotsford, 3 more farms have now tested positive for the H5N1 strain of avian flu. Local poultry farmers say this is devastating their businesses. Mark Siemens is a third-generation egg farmer. He got his chickens checked for the virus after they began to show signs of infection. His farm has now lost 45,000 birds.
Looking back, it's been a very long month, but that's when we first saw some symptoms in the barn and made that call to the sick bird line and got them tested and kind of started the journey of, trying to navigate all the different steps of that disease and eventually try to rebuild again.
The BC Poultry Association says 53 poultry farms on the Lower Mainland have now tested positive for the virus. More biosecurity measures are in place to help try to slow the spread. That includes limiting access to the farms, cleaning vehicles that enter the property, and keeping an eye out for wild birds. An injured snowboarder has been airlifted to hospital after they got hurt in the backcountry of Strathcona Provincial Park on Sunday night. The rider hurt her hip after falling during the first pitch of their descent. Her partner says they tried to make it out on their own before having to call search and rescue. A team of 4 skiers started a group ground rescue after a heavy snow meant a chopper wouldn't be able to get to them on Sunday. Search and rescue says the pair was well prepared, but reminds people to bring essentials into the backcountry.
Our advice is always to ensure that you have checked the avalanche conditions prior to heading out, as well as the weather conditions. We have some really high quality information available now through the Canadian Avalanche Centre.
The rescue operation took about 17 hours to complete. It is an important development in Jasper, Alberta's recovery after this summer's devastating wildfire. The Marmot Basin Ski Resort has just opened for its winter season. As Acton Clarkin tells us, it comes just months after flames swept through Jasper National Park.
So this is the best view in the house right here. I'm at Marmot Basin. It's one of Jasper's most popular tourism destinations, and the road to opening this year has been different than in years past. We've put in a lot of overtime and a lot more hours to get here. We just lost a lot of time while we were all away evacuated during the wildfires. It was 7 weeks of time away from the mountain, condensing the timeline for winter preparation. Some of Marmot's usual staff accommodation also burned, complicating reopening plans.
We've been short of accommodation for many years, and of course the fire, with the loss of many of the residents, has exacerbated that situation even more so. We're fortunate in that we have found accommodation for all of our staff, but it is an ongoing issue.
As the town site manages its wildfire recovery, Marmot's leadership had little doubt they would be back in business this winter.
Not opening was not an option, so everybody worked really, really hard to make sure that the mountain was going to be open for the winter and that we could invite people back and support the economy of Jasper.
Marmot's preparing for an estimated 200,000 plus visitors on these slopes this winter, which provides a big economic boost to the town of Jasper.
Without Marmot being open, I don't know that we would have enough business to be able to keep the lights on.
Mike Day owns Evil Dave's Grill and is also on the board of Tourism Jasper, the marketing organization for the town and national park. Day says the town's entire economy depends on tourism.
80% of our tax base is driven by the commercial sector. That means all of the amenities that the residents have to enjoy come from the direct relationship to the visitor economy.
Back on the mountain, Brian Road is hopeful Jasper's post-wildfire offering for visitors is still compelling.
Look at the peaks. The fire has really changed the landscape a lot, but up here and around Jasper, it's still remarkably beautiful.
It's certainly hard to argue with that. Acton Clarkin, CBC News, Jasper.
Here's a look at the day that was in Port Alberni. The clouds clearing out in the morning in the harbor city, and there was more crisp, cool late November days, at least in store now. Darius Madavi has your BC-wide forecast coming right up. As the ski and snowboard season kicks off across BC and Canada, new research out of UBC is shedding light on the number of spinal cord injuries that British Columbians are suffering from doing high-risk sports. The research points to mountain biking as the most dangerous sports for these injuries, which often lead to permanent and life-altering paralysis. Dr. Brian Kwan led that research, and he's joining us now. Doctor, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
To put it in numbers, how many people are experiencing these life-altering injuries from at least mountain biking to start?
Yeah, so we looked at a period between 2008 and 2022, and we documented 58 individuals who had suffered a spinal cord injury during that period of time, which is a big number. And to put that in perspective, if you compare that to, say, hockey, during that same period of time, 58 mountain bikers with spinal cord injuries, 3 hockey players at the same period of time. So this is a problem that's much bigger than the sport we're all very passionate about.
And particularly since it's so popular here in BC, particularly the North Shore.
Yeah.
When you talk about injuries, is there a range, or are they all catastrophic?
Well, I think that by and large, most spinal cord injuries, if you're paralyzed, that's a catastrophic injury. There are different severities, but I'd say probably 2/3 of the individuals at least have the kind of injury that you really don't walk away from. So that's a pretty big change. That's a pretty life-altering injury when that happens. So yeah, for the human impact of that is pretty astonishing when you see that up front.
And when it comes to people hitting the slopes, skiers, snowboarders, backcountry enthusiasts in BC, how dangerous are those sports compared to what we see with mountain biking and others?
Well, it's a good question. I think that there's definitely some inherent risk to that. But when we looked at the numbers, even particularly over the last couple of years, when we accounted for about 21 injuries from mountain biking, spinal cord injuries, we found 3 from skiing and snowboarding. So it certainly appears to us that this is a much bigger issue in mountain biking.
What then is the message that doctors like yourself and other researchers have for people who are engaging in this sport? Because we know it's so popular, and it's a great way to be outdoors.
It is a great way to be outdoors, and I think that it's gaining popularity. I think that we really would like to engage the stakeholders, the mountain biking community, the mountain biking parks. We think even the health authorities to be involved in really a dialogue about what can we do to improve the safety. And I think that really has to be a collaborative initiative that because I think we all have a shared interest in actually having this be as safe as possible. And as a world-leading area for mountain biking, I think we should be a world-leading area for the safety in that sport. And I think that there's a lot that we could probably do. There's probably a lot that we still need to understand about what is actually causing some of these injuries. But I think by bringing these stakeholders together, we can actually go forward in a meaningful way to institute some preventative measures to make it safer.
All right. Dr. Brian Kwan, we appreciate your time and your research. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
This week, the federal government announced it will temporarily slash GST on some goods come mid-December as part of a plan to provide some tax relief over the holidays. As Michelle Gomez reports, it's an early Christmas gift for some consumers and small businesses, while others are left disappointed.
From December 14th until February 15th, Canadians won't have to pay GST on certain goods, including children's toys and books.
The families who are struggling, this is going to have a huge impact for those families when they don't have to pay GST. Give them an opportunity so that their kids can have a Christmas gift.
It also includes restaurant meals, some types of alcohol, and Christmas trees.
Talking about this one.
Oh, okay.
Of course it'll help a bit. I think every time some costs come down for folks right now, it'll be a benefit. So yeah, why not, right? It's a little Christmas gift that might help a bit.
As a consumer, if I go to a restaurant, I pay less. We pay less for our stuff. People who come here pay less, so it's better.
But it's not the Christmas present everyone was hoping for.
No, it won't make any difference to me financially. I don't think it'll make any difference to anybody.
I think it's great for a lot of families. They'll appreciate it, but then also because it's creating more of a deficit, I have conflicted feelings.
And one local industry feels left out of the tax break.
When the pandemic hit, they said essential services
that cannabis and liquor can stay open. Now they're giving that break to the liquor. Why not the cannabis as well?
I think going down a rabbit hole on, well, why this and why not that, when it comes to groceries and toys, are probably the most important things.
And BC consumers are not going to be saving quite as much as those in some other provinces. BC, along with 8 other provinces and territories that have separate provincial and federal taxes, will save 5% GST. But other provinces that have a blended provincial and federal tax will save 13 or even 15%. Though the BC PST could take a holiday as well.
I believe those discussions have started, and yes, I hope that the province follows suit and matches this as well.
The province said in a statement that some of the goods covered by the tax exemption are already exempt from the provincial sales tax, including groceries, restaurant meals, children's clothing and footwear, and Christmas trees. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Voting day is just hours away in Nova Scotia, and the incumbent Progressive Conservatives seem poised to win their bet that a snap election would work in their favour. Kayla Hounsell shows us how federal politics fit into that calculation.
On the eve of Election Day in Nova Scotia, we've come to the iconic Blue Nose restaurant in downtown Halifax to ask what voters are thinking.
I think there's a lot to think about.
Do you think we needed this election right now?
No, I don't.
No.
Things are rolling in this province.
Polls suggest Progressive Conservative leader Tim Houston is poised for a landslide victory. Houston, seeking a second mandate, called a snap election last month. This political scientist says Houston wanted the election to happen while Justin Trudeau, consistently unpopular in the polls, is still prime minister.
I'll put it this way. I don't think there is a Liberal seat in Nova Scotia that is absolutely safe right now.
Tom Urbaniak says Houston has been successful in linking the provincial Liberals to their federal counterparts.
There were attack ads portraying Zach Churchill, who was not that well known among Nova Scotians, as being a kind of junior protege of Justin Trudeau.
In 2021, Houston's signature promise was to fix healthcare, but there are now twice as many people without a primary care provider.
They're fixing it, but they haven't fixed it. Nobody will ever fix healthcare in 4 years.
All of the parties have made promises around healthcare, affordability, and housing.
People need solutions now.
NDP leader Claudia Chender is hoping to pull her party out of third place.
We're fighting till the very last minute.
For the Liberals, it's been a challenging campaign between the anti-Trudeau sentiment, losing high-profile candidates to retirement, and a few others opting to run for the PCs.
Have you all already voted, or do you say you've already voted?
I already voted.
And though these Nova Scotians are engaged, there's concern some might just decide to stay home, particularly when polls suggest a runaway victory. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
After a year of rocket fire and bitter fighting, Israel and Hezbollah are reportedly close to a ceasefire. More on the latest push for peace in that region and what might follow. Stay with us.
Let's spread some joy.
CBC is asking you to make the season kind with us on December 6th.
Kick off the holiday season with a day of festive programming in support of local food banks across BC.
This year, we're inviting you to come down to the CBC Plaza as we spread some joy with an afternoon outdoor broadcast filled with live music, activities, and more. Make the season kind. December 6th.
This weekend's negotiations between BC inland ferry workers and their employer, Western Pacific Marine, failed to produce a new collective agreement as the two sides continue to wrestle over wages and benefits as well as employee schedules.
This is the lifeline. The ferry is the lifeline for many, many people who live in the Kootenay region. And it's we take that seriously.
Since October, Kootenay Lake Ferry has been offering essential-only service with 3 trips a day, Monday to Friday, none on the weekends. Those sailings are only available to passengers for essential services or in an emergency. Western Pacific Marine has put in an application to the Labour Relations Board to boost sailings, including on weekends. Talks between the company and the BC General Employees Union continue this week with help from a mediator. The 70th NATO Parliamentary Assembly wraps up today in Canada. Hundreds of officials have been discussing a wide range of issues, including Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Donald Trump's return to the world stage. But a lot of the spotlight was also on Canada and its failure to meet a key NATO requirement. More now from Kate McKenna.
At a meeting of NATO parliamentarians in Montreal, Justin Trudeau addressed the political elephant in the room, Canada's failure to meet its defense spending commitment.
We are on a clear path to reach 2% in the coming years because we know that the world is changing and Canada, along with our allies, needs to be ready for it.
American allies are once again criticizing Canada for being one of the last NATO countries to hit the defense spending obligation of 2% of GDP for each member of the alliance. Canada has said it could hit that target by 2032. Adding to the pressure, Donald Trump has said he wants all NATO countries to commit to 3%.
I do not speak for the President of the United States, the President-elect of the United States. If he were in this room, you would get a very large guffaw from him. I'm talking about 2032. It's got to be better than that. It truly, truly has to be better than that.
A business lobby group says Canada's lagging spending has an impact beyond defense.
It has Canada being outside of a lot of rooms where people who are committed, who understand the risks that the world is facing are getting together and talking. And that's not good for Canada to be left out of a room like that. We need to earn our way in now.
Canada is far from the target, spending only 1.37% of GDP this year, one of only 8 member countries that haven't hit the 2% commitment. Defense Minister Bill Blair says he's open to moving faster.
They want us to go faster, and I'm ready to go faster. They want a commitment from us that we're going to spend what is required, and I agree completely, and I've said yes.
The defense minister didn't say how the government could hit that target sooner. To do so, the parliamentary budget officer says the government would have to almost double defense spending to about $82 billion. Money that would have to come from somewhere else. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
U.S. federal prosecutors have asked for 2 criminal cases against President-elect Donald Trump to be dropped. U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith filed a motion asking a judge to drop felony charges against the president. It's for allegedly trying to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election, which culminated in the U.S. Capitol attack in January 2021. Smith's team also asked to abandon another criminal case against Trump, that one for illegally holding on to classified documents after the end of his first presidency. Prosecutors say both cases are being dropped because of a long-standing Justice Department policy that a sitting president cannot face criminal prosecution. But they said it does not change the gravity of the alleged crimes, the strength of the government's case, or the merits of the prosecution. Trump's team is calling today's developments a major victory for the rule of law. And weeks before he takes office, Donald Trump has dropped a bombshell for Ottawa, warning that one of his first executive actions is a 25% tariff on goods coming from Canada and Mexico. Such a tariff would be a dramatic transformation of NAFTA trade relations and a seismic shock to Canada's economy. Trump is threatening that it would remain in place until what he describes as an invasion of illegal migrants and drugs across the border stops.
We know that we're going to be facing a more protectionist government than we have in the past, and there's going to be significant consequences with that. I understand that there will be negotiations happening at the national level. And, you know, I think it's important to remember that much of our supply chain between Canada and the US is quite integrated. And so it might be much more difficult to do than a simple tariff announcement like this.
Bailey says while Trump's tariffs are concerning, there's an opportunity for BC through what she calls a diversified trade strategy, saying the province can focus on relationships with its third and fourth trading partners, Japan and Korea. To the Middle East now, where there is at least a chance for peace. A ceasefire deal with the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah is in Israel's hands, awaiting agreement. And as Paul Hunter explains, from Washington to Jerusalem to Beirut, the word is it's close to a yes.
On the mere suggestion, a truce between Israel and Hezbollah may now finally be at hand in southern Lebanon, jubilation.
Good morning.
Even as Israel's ambassador to the United Nations was cautious,
we haven't finalized it, but we are moving forward.
A presumed deal is believed to be now awaiting sign-off from Israel's war cabinet. This with reports from Lebanon that a ceasefire announcement by U.S. President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron is now imminent. And the top Hamas official in Lebanon is now publicly applauding a truce. Any announcement of a ceasefire is welcome, said Osama Hamdan on the Lebanese network El Mayadeen, generally seen as pro-Hezbollah. Fighting began around the Israel-Lebanon border shortly after the October 7th attacks by Hamas in southern Israel. But lately it's been particularly fierce. Over time, Hezbollah rockets drove tens of thousands from their homes in northern Israel. Then, nearly 2 months ago, an Israeli ground invasion forced more than 1 million to flee in Lebanon.
This has been an incredibly frustrating process.
The U.S. State Department now underlining there's been significant progress lately toward a truce, with the U.S. pushing hard to end the fighting now.
But we're not done yet. Nothing is final until everything is final. We continue to work to try and get an agreement over the line. And we're hopeful we can get one, but we need both of the parties to get to yes.
Such talks in that region have been close before and still failed to find approval in the end. The high-stakes question for all now, will they get there this time? Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
One person has died after a cargo plane crashed as it approached the airport in Lithuania's capital. Lithuanian officials say 3 other people on board were hurt, but no one on the ground was injured. The flight was operated by Airline Swiftair on behalf of DHL and had taken off from Germany. Authorities are looking into whether Russia played a role, given its suspected involvement in other cases of sabotage. But they stressed there is no evidence pointing to that right now. Western security officials suspect Russian intelligence is carrying out sabotage against nations in retaliation for their support in Ukraine. Well, passengers on board a ferry in False Creek were treated to a very incredible moment this weekend.
All stations, all stations, all stations. There are approximately 4 orca whales between bridges. Everybody's shifting to neutral.
They got a very close-up view of a pod of orcas as the whales passed by mere meters from the boat. Good thing they were at least a couple of meters away. Yeah. I think the rule is you got to shut off your engine and just keep your distance. Remember that.
Yeah, I will next time I'm out boating with orcas.
Yeah, there you go, as you're frolicking. What's frolicking in the weather? There's a segue.
Sure. Yeah. It's cold, Dan. It's cold. Lots of cold weather, especially up in the north, where temperatures are pretty much 10 to 15 degrees below seasonal. That will remain the case in the northeast. Some places, especially in the Peace, I should say, and some places, though, coming down 5 to 10 degrees below seasonal over the next couple days, or I guess coming up. In the south, also a little bit cool, but not nearly as much in the north. Tomorrow, temperatures come up a little bit, but it doesn't last long. They fall once again, especially in the northeast, as we get into Wednesday, and then remaining low on Thursday. So expect a pretty chilly week. Freezing levels are pretty much where they would normally be this time of year in the south, but again, quite a bit colder in the north and central interior. If we take a look at our precipitation forecast, we are relatively calm over the next day or so. Then we start to see some precipitation come into the northwest and then make its way into the central interior as well as some snow. Thursday, also fairly calm, but we may see some showers on parts of the south coast and then some flurries at those higher elevations. Friday brings our next probably real rain on the south coast. Could turn into just showers. It may not be consistent rainfall. And then the weekend is looking a little bit showery and unsettled as well, but nothing like we had last week. It doesn't seem like there's going to be any major wind or consistent rainfall coming anytime soon. In terms of that precipitation, like I said, most of that is confined to the northern half of the province and especially on the coast, the north coast in particular. Here on the south coast, not looking at anything too much. In terms of that, what comes down as snowfall, here we go, we can see that, again, a lot of that comes to the central interior once we get into midweek. But besides that, most of it is, once again, confined to the coast and at those higher elevations. So don't expect to see any more big dumps of snow for the ski resorts down here in the south over the next couple days. We have gotten quite a lot of snow last week, but not going to see too much more right about now. In terms of sunshine, lots of it tomorrow. I will say, this probably overstates it a bit. The cloud will be coming in and out, but there will be some sun for most people at some point during the day tomorrow. Then as we get into our 5-day forecast here in Vancouver, also a bit of sun tomorrow, especially in the morning, then a little bit cloudier as we get later into the day, and a little bit of cloudy activity midweek, and then some showers, Dan. So, you know, something for everybody.
Enjoy Tuesday.
From last week.
There you go. And you have some signs, but why don't we take a deep breath, because it would do us all good. Darius, tell us about this penguin who lost its way just, 2,000 miles from home.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trip. I would like you to meet Gus. Now, normally you would expect to find Gus down here in Antarctica with all of his penguin buddies. All of these
absolutely,
being different,
pen pals for years.
Yeah, emperor penguin breeding sites in Antarctica. But instead, Gus was found several thousand kilometers away in Australia. This place called Ocean Beach here in Australia. Let's bring Gus in here. There we go. And we actually have some visuals for you of Gus. You can take a look. He was rescued. He was taken in by people who are able to rehabilitate wildlife. He gained 7 or 8 pounds before he was released back to return to Antarctica because he was found in not great shape. But unfortunately, he made a great recovery. He is now on his way back to Antarctica. And if you take a look here, let's zoom out. There we go, heading back, making his way back sometime soon.
Swimming?
So, thank goodness for Gus.
Or they
Fortunately, no, they're helping him out.
Okay, whoa, what service.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's the biggest night in Canadian music, and it's coming back to BC. More on the big announcement you won't want to miss. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
On Friday, December 6th, join us at CBC's Make the Season Kind in support of communities in need and food banks in British Columbia. The annual charity drive is filled with special programming and festive activities. To donate, visit cbc.ca/kindbc. And we look forward to seeing you on December 6th.
Provincial, municipal, and Indigenous leaders were here at the CBC today to share more about the 2025 Juno Awards right here in Vancouver.
It's so wonderful to be here with you because the arts are how we get to know each other. Music is how we build our souls, find our vibe, find our joy.
Next year's ceremony will be hosted by BC crooner Michael Bublé. Along with the show, Vancouver's mayor says the city will give $350,000 to the Vancouver Music Fund to help emerging and underrepresented artists.
We're big believers in that, everyone should have the opportunity to pursue their dreams, and sometimes people get dealt a way tougher hand. And, we just want to give some people, a leg up, so to speak.
Musicians can apply for the fund starting January 29th of next year. The 2025 Junos will be broadcast on CBC March 30th, and tickets go on sale Friday.
And some sad news in Vancouver. The clockmaster, Raymond Saunders, has died.
He's most famous for building the Gastown steam clock that draws tourists to take in its toots every quarter hour. Back in November 2021, the CBC's GP Mendoza tagged along with Raymond as he did his clock rounds in the city. Take a look.
Raymond Saunders keeps the hands moving on Vancouver's street clocks. He's been building and servicing outdoor clocks in BC and around the world for over 40 years. Each year he goes around the city changing their hour hands during daylight savings time.
My name is Raymond Saunders. I am a horologist, which means I'm a clockmaker. Falling back takes the most time because you've got to shut the clock off for an hour and come back and turn it back on. This one is 1991, and I've been servicing it regularly along with the Mount Pleasant Street clock. I lubricate them when I change the times, so they're always kept oiled and running smooth.
Saunders is most known for building the Gastown steam clock in the 1970s. Only Saunders and a few city engineers hold copies of the maintenance keys to the clock. At 81 years old, he's been slowly passing his skills on to city workers.
It's a shame that it's a dying trade and no one is really learning the trade. So there's nobody taking in my place. I've been on my own all my life fixing clocks.
As governments on the West Coast consider moving to permanent daylight time, Saunders says he's looking forward to letting go of this part of his job.
Well, I'm ready to retire from setting clocks, and I wouldn't mind it. Every year I keep thinking this may be the last time I'm setting these clocks, but it'd be a while before Washington, Oregon, and California get on board. My retirement is going to be restoring my own clock collection and making metal sculptured clocks. That's what I want to do. Does anybody have the correct time? Is it on the right time?
I've got 2:24.
That's pretty close. Well, except that's good for enough for Gastown.
John Paul Mendoza, CBC News, Vancouver.
Good on him.
There's a reason to not change the clocks.
Exactly. There you go. Listen to Raymond.
Change them.
There you go, and best to his family.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And we'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. We'll see you then.